look around. Oh, I can look around.
Karl Faubert sought information for a living. That is to say that ever since he returned from Korea, after having served with the armed forces, he had been working as a private investigator in Montreal. William Hamilton, a rich industrialist, had gotten in touch with him regarding a simple vandalism issue. Nothing to write home about. Not worth hiring a private eye either, just so he can drive for hours on rough roads. But that's how it had always been. The client pays, Karl gets it done.
Oh, I can actually drive.
They had set up to meet at the general store, his client's business. Well, actually, the entire village had William Hamilton's name written all over it. When the roads were bad, muddy, or snowed in, it was customary around these parts to close them off. But it was also customary to ignore those signs entirely and drive there anyway. Hamilton never mentioned a road-blocking barrier. Why was it needed here in the back of Beyond? That would, however, be a mystery for another day. Karl had waited long enough for someone to come and raise it. Still not a soul in sight. There was no point in waiting any longer. Karl had to figure this one out by himself.
Basically big scissors, so it should be in here. There they are. Can I just jump off this? Let's go through here. Oh, it's a hole.
The cutters made quick work of the chain. What better way to investigate vandals than to get into their shoes? Karl, the professional vandal, thought, reveling in the irony of the situation. Hamilton is waiting for Karl in the general store. It was time for him to get down to business. William Hamilton enjoyed a lavish country house built in the very heart of the northern forests, not too far from here. The local populace was divided when it came to the affluent men. Some saw a wealthy philanthropist dedicated to improving the region. Others an aging Englishman who would do anything to further his fortunes. And those ones hated him enough to go on about scheming against him. Hamilton had recently acquired a few local businesses, but the last straw was the reopening of a mine, which gave rise to a wave of protests and threats from the Cree people. Given these circumstances, Karl reckoned that a good number of people must be feeling compelled to oppose Hamilton in one way or another. So far, only the industrialist's house had been a target, but soon enough, Karl thought, the target would become the man himself. Karl needed to get out of there. The cold and the pain required urgent care.
Okay, so where should we go? Oh,
The driver had taken on. It was still
he's
best
gone.
to check it out and leave nothing to chance. Karl
let's open this. Where's that? Oh, someone them kill.
It was so cold. Already Karl did not feel his
First aid
toes
kit.
anymore.
Okay,
This
let's
deep
go.
in the country, his last hope was to find an abandoned garage or a farm by the roadside. His life depended on it.
Okay, let's grab this, and then let's open this. Grab
Even better than he had
everything I
hoped.
can.
Karl Faubert had
Okay.
succeeded
I'll
once
just
more
fire.
and was now on his way to new adventures.
Let's do that. like this. Oh. Door. Yes.
Spread out on a few acres of untouched forest, bellowing caribou, everlasting snow, and undefiled lakes, the Manistan region was no tourist hub. It was said to have been populated for millennia by Cree people, and ever since the industrial era, by the metal mining industry. Jean-Luc Bédard had without a doubt been the closest man in the village to William Hamilton, otherwise known as Uncle Willie.
Oh, so is something actually here? Jag svävde nothing here. I'm just gonna go. Where is the gate? Oh, don't trust that. The stairs. Those lead up to there, so I'll just try. I'm so smart. This game's actually alright, you know.
Now wasn't a good time to wander about. Hamilton was still out there. The truck was running on fumes. Good thing that the general store was close by. An explosion suddenly occurred outside. The Polaroid, Carl's long-standing and faithful ally, has seen its share of husbands caught red-handed cheating. There's always something out there waiting to be snapped away. Carl was not surprised when he heard no tone. Carl knew that Gilles Lachance was in charge of the general store. That made him one of Hamilton's employees. A very angry employee, as Carl could plainly see. Jumping from that height was akin to tempting death. Perhaps that man on the snowmobile had seen enough of this world already. knew straight away where to find the infuriated Gilles Lachance. Any good investigation would have to start there. A wintry atmosphere surrounded the house. The soundlessness of the area suggested it was empty. The spirograph amused Carl. It was a nice modern toy, aside from being repetitive by nature and completely useless. Still, it found its way into many Quebecois homes. Little Martin Blais with a family member. There was some resemblance between them, and Carl took note of the sense of bonding and pride they projected. The track was fresh. That meant the car sunk down just a little while ago. Now where the hell could the passengers possibly have gone? Someone had been playing with a crossbow here. A very dangerous game. A bolt could hit someone's tire or their eye. It could even kill someone if the aim was right. One must have dropped this in a hurry, but whoever did was heading into the woods. Carl's tracking instincts were quickly kicking in. Carl felt engulfed by a wave of cold, and for a second thought he was fainting. All of a sudden, 4 phantasmagoric figures were fixing their gaze on him. What the hell was going on? Numbness was giving way to awareness. The vision was wavering.
climb up the ladder. There should be some. Oh, the ash gem as well. Now let's grab the empty bomb bottles. Bang. Oh. Repair carabine. So now hanging the white coat. Right, let's go speak to this old man. Hopefully don't use it.
Cold turned into pain. Carl needed to find someplace warm.
C'était comme sur l'image, on était vrai, fiers, forts, puis on avait le bon Dieu de notre bord. Ah, quand on cherche, on trouve. Parce que je t'aime bien, à cette heure, je vais te dire quelque chose. Tu fais bien de prendre ma pénice. Parce que par là-bas, tu vas rencontrer le vrai froid. Un froid qui glace comme t'en as jamais connu dans ta vie.
I got a car top. Let's go. I think it's my friend and I don't think I'm to shoot him anymore, do you? Let's go
The
explore
cold
the cave.
seemed to be more brutal here than anywhere else. It seeped into bones and into every breath to get to the heart until it stopped. Carl needed to be dressed in warm clothes to survive. Luckily, he had the coat to protect him from the biting cold. Seems like the elements showed mercy to those nice and solid-looking planks. Another instance of this magic ice. What was this one doing, lying on the ground, under into ice? He had been running in fear from something creeping towards him, against which he couldn't do anything, only to end up like this, petrified and cold.
Where was he running from? Secret bunker? We blow the bomb. The hell?
It seemed as though Régin had been ready to take up arms and slay people like Hamilton. Could he have committed murder for his cause? Who could have gotten killed in front of his very eyes?
Let's grab a gun. Fine. The only choice I really have is move the plank.
Carl suddenly felt observed. He was worried about a presence around him.
Mate, you come out on. We'll shoot you if you don't move away from me. It's our shooter. Wait, maybe over here there's something. Dynamite. Let's. Let's go.
No stone can withstand the force of dynamite.
Oh no.
Carl felt that the store and its surroundings still held their secrets, and he didn't like to miss out. Carl had no issue recognizing the spirit-like figures, but he couldn't figure out what they wanted from him. The phantom, freed of reality's shackles, vanished in the forest. Earlier, Carl had witnessed the tragedy that befell it. Another phantom disappeared in the wilderness. Carl had seen what happened to it too. A third phantom gently faded away. Carl noticed that as the cursed villagers finally left reality, he could feel a sense of unburdening exuding from them in an almost intimate way. The last phantom, lost in solitude up until now, joined the others in the forest's darkness, free at last to enjoy an eternal, well-deserved slumber. Carl was only beginning to understand the horror which had struck his village. He understood that the dead couldn't help them by himself. The road was clear for him. He needed to push further north, and fast, to find help.
I guess we'll take clinic again.
Another diary. Carl felt like someone was trying to communicate with him. Or was it simply the result of happenstance? Right until that point, Carl had believed that the object of this crossbow hunting had been a ravenous wolf who was terrorizing the village. But as he noticed the height at which the bolts had been fired, he concluded that the beast had to have been as tall as a man on his feet, not unlike a gorilla. The thought was chilling. Carl reckoned that the place was still inhabited less than 24 hours ago. His detective sense tingled, revealing to him, or was it the strong smell of wilderness in the air, that there were most likely 2 men. The jacket was still soaking wet. The poor man had, surely unwillingly, had a taste of the pond's water not too long ago. According to the pay stub, that poor man was Alexandre Blais. The door was unlocked. Carl felt kind of disappointed that he wouldn't have to solve the mystery of that padlock. Seems like this place was long deserted. The door had been busted down violently, and a burnt smell filled the air. Half of the cabin had been consumed by flames. Carl surveyed the chaotic scene, noticing that someone appeared to have intended to use the furniture as bonfire fuel. Carl had no idea how such a mess could have occurred, but he knew it didn't bode well. The flames won't grow without some help. Other materials were required. Two more victims of this ice plague. Carl felt a chill down his spine. What if he was next? Carl felt the strong pull above vision overcome him. A young woman. It looked like a simple hunting accident. There was Hamilton. Carl recognized him. A major hunting accident. The doctor examined the young woman. But death couldn't be overturned. She was dead. It was not the type of body you buried in a big ceremony in the village graveyard. It had to be hidden. No one could know about this. The best way to do that was to have a simple-minded man bury the poor girl. Lamotte, the mechanic. The doctor denied the unfair death of the young woman, but Hamilton had him in his grips. Hamilton knew all of the poet's secrets and wouldn't hesitate to reveal them. I know all about your crimes, you little communist. You know mine. What a sordid affair. Carl understood the ins and outs of the affair. A woman had been killed in an unfair accident, and a young warrior had damned himself to avenge her. But Hamilton, the one responsible, had already been killed, and so the beast could not quench its thirst for vengeance. And now, recklessly, Carl had pulled the bolt from the beast's heart. A beast who was but a young free man lost without his fiancée, and who had, out of hatred, become Wendigo. narrow passage sheltered him, but for how long? When you disappeared, so did purity. I would defend purity against the winds, the tides, against ice and blizzard. Could it be that all this was but a story of justice and vengeance? The soulful doctor, avenging his fiancée's unjust death by avenging this young woman as though she was his lover. Are these passionate feelings not precisely the kind of feelings that could cause a storm, petrify people deep inside, create monsters?
Un survivant! On a trouvé un survivant!